Thank you for this good time of worship. It's great to be back with you again today. We find ourselves once more in the first chapter of the book of Ruth. So if you would turn there at this time, and we'll just resume where we left off. You know, yesterday we stood at graves in Moab. Yesterday we felt the hot wind of famine, and we experienced the silence of heaven. But today, things begin to change. We saw yesterday a family leave the house of bread for a shortcut of survival, and we saw how that shortcut ended with 3 burials. But today, things begin to change. We have no miracle yet. There's no burning bush experience that I can point to. There's no parting of the sea. But we simply have movement. Okay? Guys, in our spiritual life, any movement toward God is a movement toward restoration. You may be crawling, you may be weeping, you may be limping, but if your face is turned towards Bethlehem, then you have hope. To that brother that might be here this morning that feels somewhat paralyzed by their present day circumstances, I want to suggest something. Look at Naomi. Look at Naomi. Despair had seated her. Grief had disabled her. But today she begins to stand yet again. So let's begin with a rumor that was circulating. Okay? Verse 6. Join me at verse 6. Someone read that for me, please. Thank you, Bosco. I wonder if you caught that all-important word. Visited. Visited. In Hebrews, it means that God didn't just look at them. It means that God didn't just notice them, but he drew near to them. He got involved in their situation, and he acted in kindness. But where was Naomi when she heard this rumor? She was in Moab. Grace, my men, has a long reach. You can be in the far country much like the prodigal son. You can be in enemy territory chiefly due to your own poor decisions, and the good news of God's grace can still find you. Some of you came to GTS this term. Some of you came and you had problems. You had struggles. and things were difficult, but yet you began to hear this whisper. In your village, you were in a state of want maybe, but you heard this whisper that God is still moving, and so you came. That whisper made you rise. That whisper put strength back into your legs that were tired of standing over graves. And if you are here this morning and you are moving towards God today, I tell you one thing, and that is this: hope is still alive in your soul. Let's read some more, beginning with verse 7 through and including verse 13, please.
Okay, 7. So she sent out from the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go, return each of you to the mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband." Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. Then verse 10, and they said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb, that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have husband. If I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons, would you therefore wait till they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from you marrying? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me."
So we see Naomi beginning to walk again. But what does she do next? She tries to what? Send her daughter-in-laws back home. Why? Why would she do such a thing? Because she believes that she now no longer has anything to offer. She says, I'm too old to take another husband. And even if I did take another husband and I had a son, you would not be willing to wait until he grew up so that you could marry him. Listen to me now. Broken leaders often underestimate their value. Naomi is convinced that because her hands are empty, her life is useless. But even in her pain, even in the depth of her pain, she blesses these daughter-in-laws. She prays kindness over them. The next thing I think is huge. I'm at verse number 13. Verse number 13 says, "The hand of the Lord has gone out against me." Now, Naomi is a true believer. She believes in the sovereignty of God. She believes that God is in control of the all things of her life, but she begins to interpret God's sovereignty through the lens of pain. But you know what? As pastors, we sometimes do this. We get up on Sunday morning and we preach the truth, but when our children are sick, or when our churches are locked up, that pain begins to cloud our vision. We see the hand of the Lord, all right, but we see it as a hand that strikes, not as a hand that shapes. Man, I want you to notice something. God does not interrupt her. I mean, look at the text. Do you see any evidence that God interrupts her? That God ever says, wait, Naomi, I've heard enough. No, he doesn't strike her down because of her criticism and complaint. He just continues to write Naomi's story. You know, our imperfect understanding of our pain does not in any way cancel out God's faithfulness towards us. Well, we have to talk about the issue of loyalty. So, Bosco, if you would read beginning verse 14 through 18.
14 through 18. Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. And she said, see, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more.
Amen. I see two responses here. Orpah simply kisses Naomi and returns home to her gods. Ruth, on the other hand, clings to Naomi. Orpah's decision was a practical one. Ruth's decision was theological. Ruth then makes what I think one of the greatest confessions in all of the Bible. Look at the text. Your people, this is what she says to Naomi, your people shall be, someone tell me, my people, and your God shall be my God. Your people shall be my people, your God shall be my God. Men, this is conversion. This is life-altering surrender. And don't miss the timing. Before redemption ever reaches Bethlehem, it captures a foreigner. Well, Naomi is over here complaining that God has dealt bitterly with her. God is using Naomi's life to bring Ruth, to draw Ruth into relationship with him. I want to speak to that pastor this morning that may see their ministry in the village as being small and insignificant. You think you are just surviving a difficult season in your life. But in God's great economy, He's using your endurance. He's using your patience. He's using your perseverance to capture the heart of people that you haven't even noticed yet. Well, Naomi stops arguing. Look at verse 18. And she accepts the companion that God has provided for her. Listen to me. When God captures someone, no one can stop him. Bosco, read verses 19 through 21.
19 through 21. So the two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" She said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." Then 21. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?
Thank you. So they arrived back in Bethlehem. And it seems as though the whole town is astir. Could this possibly be Naomi? They barely recognized the lady. Time, grief, and the son of Moab had marked her face. Let's be honest, guys. Ministry does the same thing. The stress of leadership, the months when there's no rent money, the weight of everyone's personal burdens, it ages a person. It marks the face. So Naomi responds with a new name. She says, "Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara." Mara means bitter. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. She says, I went away full and he sent me back empty. Here is the real tragedy, I think, of spiritual blindness. She says that she is empty, and yet standing beside her is Ruth. Ruth is the link to King David. Ruth is God's gift to her. But Naomi's pain has so blinded her to God's grace that she cannot even see who stands beside her. My fellow shepherds, be careful what sorrow teaches you about life. Sorrow is a liar. It tells you that you have nothing and that you are useless when right beside you is your worth, is God's gift. I want you to notice the title that Naomi uses for God. She calls him the Almighty. Shaddai. She believes. She believes that he's powerful. She just isn't sure that he is tender. And many of us this morning live at this same place. We believe that God can move mountains, but we aren't convinced that he cares that there's little food on the shelves. Verse 22, Oscar.
Verse 22. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabites, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest.
I love verse 22. I think verse 22 is nothing short of an explosion of hope. The verse reads, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Naomi saw funerals, burials. God saw a harvest. Naomi says she's empty. And God says this is just the beginning. You may have returned to GTS this term tired. You may have returned unsure. You may have returned wounded. But if you are moving towards God's place of promise, then you are moving in the direction of God's harvest. Guys, the bitter will arrive to all of our lives, but for a season. But the barley, I want you to see this, but the barley is already in the field. God has not solved all of the problems that we see in chapter 1, but make no mistake, God has positioned every single thing. So tomorrow, we'll enter the field, and in that field, we're going to learn just how the providence of God works through the everyday labor of a faithful servant. Let's pray. Lord, I know that among these men, there's at least one or two that feel they are a mar. At least one or two has grown bitter because of the struggles and the challenges that they have been asked to face. But Father, help them to know that you're not finished writing their story. And that everything is being positioned in their lives so they will experience the harvest. God, keep us moving in the direction of your harvest. Help us to remember, regarding the things that you ask us to face and the things that you ask us to do. And we many times shy back and say, why? Why me? Why now? Why this? Father, help us just be obedient. Stop the complaining. Stop the criticism. And choose obedience. The how of it all is up to you. Obedience is all you ask of us. We pray this in the precious name